Hey everybody, Jeremy here, and today I want to talk about using full frame lenses on crop sensor cameras. I did a video about this a little while ago showing how you can take a lens such as this old K-mount 70 to 200 millimeter lens and mounting it to a small crop sensor mirrorless camera like the Nikon 1J1. Now you can do this with the use of an adapter, very cheap, dumb adapter. I have one that's connected to this lens right now. This particular adapter, I can't quite recall how much I spent on it, but it couldn't have been more than about 20 bucks. And all it is, it's just an attachment. There's no electronics in it or anything. It can just fit right onto the Nikon 1J1, and then on the other side, it can fit these K-mount lenses. So you can use other types of lenses for this as well. It doesn't just have to be K-mount lenses, but in my case, I'm using this K-mount telephoto because that's what I have handy. So what I want to do is take this lens and the Nikon 1J1. I'm going to take this outside. We're going to do some shooting with it. And just know that when you do this, you have to have your camera in manual settings. You have to set everything manually. Your exposure, your shutter speed, your aperture, it all has to be done manually. You set your ISO to whatever you want. You can also have the ISO range set up if you don't want to have to keep fiddling with it every single time. But looking outside right now, the light seems to be pretty even all around. It doesn't seem to be changing all that much. And I'm just going to show how you can get really, really, really close using full frame lenses on crop sensor cameras. Why is that exactly? Well, it all has to do with what people call the crop factor. Crop factor refers to how much of the photo will be naturally cropped the moment you hit the shutter. If you ever cut someone out of a photo because you decided you didn't like them for some reason, you essentially practice cropping. When it comes to cameras with crop sensors, it essentially means that the final image is going to look a little more zoomed in than it would be if you took the same photo on a full frame DSLR or a 35 millimeter camera. It doesn't mean that the lens is actually getting longer. It just means the last image that you get is going to be zoomed in ever so slightly. In the case of the Nikon 1J1, the crop factor is 2.7. That means that if I take a full frame lens at 200 millimeters and stuck it on the Nikon one, I would have a field of view equivalent to about 540 millimeters. Here are a couple of examples. Take a look at this sunset image here. Now in the first image, try to get an idea of just how wide everything is. Over on the left, you can see that there is a tree coming up, and then over at the bottom, you can see just a few trees peeking out right from the bottom there. But if I were to take that same image and crop it, then you see that the tree is no longer there. It means that some of the frame has been lost because of the crop factor. A bit of the sky has been lost too. So that's essentially what happens when you crop a photo. The same thing happens when you deal with a crop sensor camera. I'm just going to take a little walk around the unfinished neighborhood. So right off the bat, you can probably see over there, there's a little building. Now, I'm pretty far away from this building. But with this camera, I'm going to turn it on, focusing manually. And we're just going to focus right there at the very peak of that building. Now, since you can't always trust the LCD screen, it's always good to look back at the image and take a look at the histogram. The histogram tells me that it's just a little dark, not too dark, so I'm going to bring the shutter speed down to 250. Take the same shot. And now the histogram tells me everything is pretty much right in the middle, as it should be. Let's try something else. There is a house way back from here, kind of in the woods in a way. Let's see if we can see that house. Have to zoom right back out. There it is, all the way over there. Now remember, this gives me a field of view with this 200mm lens of about 540 millimeters, as opposed to being just 200 because of the crop factor, 2.7 crop factor. So you just take 200 multiply it by 2.7 and you get your 540. Today right here, even with the 200mm lens, I can get pretty close on this thing. But now that my field of view is like 540 millimeters, that's how close I can get. Now, so what does that do for background blur? Well, you should know that I'm shooting at f4, which is wide open for this lens, letting in as much light as possible. Don't want to stop it down too much, but even shooting wide open like this, if I were to bend down, just try to get an idea of what the background blur is. This is what the shot looks like if the background is in focus. And then if I just wanted to focus on just a little bush in the background from 70 millimeters, I'm not zooming in. That's that difference. But if I do zoom in a bit, take a look at what happens to the background then. Nice and blurry, yeah? Over back here, there's a light pole. Now, you can see where I am. See, there's a light pole way over there. I cannot imagine how close or how far that is as far as feet and stuff is concerned. But I'm going to zoom all the way in on it, focusing manually, of course. And taking the shot. Now it's important, if you do this, to make sure that your shutter speed is good and fast. My shutter speed here is appropriate for ISO 200, is 250 tenths of a second. That's fine, because nothing that I'm taking a picture of is moving all that much. Since this is an all manual, old manual lens, and I'm using a dumb adapter, there is no image stabilization. So you're not going to be able to get any kind of shake reduction. So you have to make sure that you can compensate for that yourself by having a fast enough shutter speed. Also, the thing that's helping me out right now is this little LCD magnifier that I have in the back of the Nikon 1J1, which is basically magnifying the LCD screen for me. And since it's magnifying the screen for me, I can see things more closely. Here's a sign that says, "Security notice. This property is protected by video surveillance." I think that's a lie, but let's zoom in on that. And that's what we get. So as long as that shutter speed is fast enough, we'll be good. So you can get so much closer to subjects when you're using a crop sensor camera with a full frame lens. There are going to be some restrictions, of course, if you want it wide angles, but if you just wanted to do telephoto images, it can be very, very helpful. Also, the quality of the lens is a big factor too. Because if the lens is just bad, images aren't going to look good anyway, or at least not as good as they could. Let's take a look at this security camera. They claim it's monitoring. It's not, though. It's not. So the so-called security camera, I guess if it were active, it would have been, oh, about right here. But since it's not, all we can see is the little keypad to get into this place. Now some of the images I can see on the LCD screen right now looking a little bit dark. Looking a little bit dark from over there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the ISO up to 200. Oh, I was at 100 before. Bring my ISO up to 200. Oh, check it out. Here's a little bird's nest. A little tiny bird's nest. I don't think it's still active though. I don't think this bird nest is still active, but now that picture is a bit too bright. I guess I must have been under shade. I'm going to bring it right back down to ISO 100. Same focus, same everything. And Mr. Histogram tells me we're inching over towards the bright side. So I'm going to bring over, I'm going to increase the shutter speed once more, and there we go. Different exposures, all just by changing the shutter speed. I'll see if I want to get a little bit closer on this here bird's nest. This little tiny bird's nest. And here, oh, what is that? I'm not sure what that is. Anyway, back to the bird's nest. You can try to get nice. I mean, this is like really close. I'm not even zoomed in to 200 millimeters, but focused on the branch in front of it. And now for the rest. So yeah, just a little example how insanely close you can get. Now I also tried to do this with birds, and of course when you're trying to find birds, they never want to hang around when you're looking for them. But if you ever do get a minute to look for the birds, like for me, I was just sitting out in the backyard and I got one that came pretty close, and I took that picture with this lens and I think it came out pretty nice. So yeah, this is a little example of some of the fun things that you can do with a crop camera and a telephoto lens. Because due to that increased crop, you are going to get much closer to your subjects than you otherwise would have. But once again, just know that doing this requires you to do everything manually. So that's all for now. Here's a little water bottle. Thanks for watching this video, and I will be back next time with even more. So till next time, I'm Jeremy, and I'll see you later.